Can you speak directly to the person that's listening to us and tell them how their life might be different if they take to heart absolutely everything that you are about to teach and share with us today?
Of course. And I think the challenge for so many of us is that we believe the negative self-talk we have. And as a result, we create limited beliefs that then limit our possibilities. And we believe this ongoing narrative. And the reality is we have more power within ourselves. And it's understanding that you control this. There is no outside force. And as you know, in my book, it says the universe doesn't give a fuck about you because there is nothing out there. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but I mean, you can't wait for somebody to magically take care of everything. The reality is you have the power within yourself to change your circumstance. And it's just believing it. And listen, I will tell you, as you know, I grew up in a challenging background. My father was an alcoholic. My mother had had a stroke when I was a child. She was partially paralyzed, chronically depressed, attempted suicide. We were evicted. We were on public assistance. And in those situations, you think there's no hope. But as I found, and from my first book, Into the Magic Shop, I walked into a magic shop and met a woman who looked at me as a human being. And what I mean by that is so many people make judgments about people. And they don't recognize the path or the problems or the adversities they faced. And everybody deserves to be listened to. So this woman in this magic shop, she was a radiant being. She had a smile, a presence that made you feel safe. And this is a key, psychological safety, to down-regulate your stress response. And she made me feel okay. She didn't look down on me, and I was 12. As a 12-year-old, she looked at me as an equal, eye to eye. And that interaction with her changed the trajectory of my life because it changed how I saw the world.
You've written about your past. You've written about this interaction with this woman in the magic shop, and still, it brings so much emotion up in you. How come?
One, I'm appreciative. Two, a lot of people are suffering. They're carrying baggage from their past, and that baggage is limiting them. And oftentimes, just listening to somebody can profoundly change their lives, because that's what people want, to be heard. And sometimes it's just hello. Sometimes it's just a hug. So I always tell people, never forget your own ability to change somebody's life. And also to recognize that oftentimes how somebody is interacting with you has nothing to do with what's going on. It has to do with the baggage they're carrying. And so give people a benefit of a doubt. And so, if you grow up in a background like mine, typically there are two paths. One is the path you become an alcoholic, drug abuser, have mental health issues. The other issue, overexcel, right? Overachieve. Then the path of the overachiever gets bifurcated. There's the one group who say, nobody helped me. I did this all myself. I'm not going to help anybody else. Then you have the other group, which I probably typified, maybe excessively, where I understand the pain people go through. And very deeply. So I'm very attuned to that.
I personally cry all the time for the same reason. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody explain why I feel so driven to do what I do. So thank you for that. That was a real gift to me to hear somebody explain why tears come up all the time and why I end this podcast every single time by telling the person who's listening that I love them. Because I know for most people, they actually don't hear it said by anybody else.
No, and which is a very sad statement because, and we can talk about this, but so many people live in a fear mode all the time. And of course, it has all sorts of deleterious effects. And being in a love mode or a heart-centered mode is very difficult, especially if you have all sorts of challenges that distract you from who you really are. And I think the gift you give people, and hopefully I try to give people, is a sense of hope and possibilities.
I want to go back to the moment in the magic shop that truly shaped you forever and changed the trajectory of your life. And so the person who's listening can really perhaps see themselves or someone they love in the story. Could you explain, as a 12-year-old, you're walking into this magic shop, first just kind of how you felt emotionally at that point in your life, going through all of the heartache and the hardship that you did, that so many people do, and how this interaction with an adult woman who you had never met, who just interacted with you, how that actually changed?
What would happen in my situation at home was whenever there was fighting or challenging events, I would get on my bike and ride as far and as fast away as I could. And I rode a great distance far from my house and ended up at a strip mall. And I'd had an interest in magic for a while. I used to have a plastic thumb that I would do tricks with.
My son has one of those.
Yes. And I lost it. And so I was looking for a plastic thumb. But anyway, I saw the magic shop and I went in. And what was interesting was this woman was there, and who was in her mid-50s probably. And I still remember her vividly because she was wearing a blue and white muumuu. Remember these outfits? Because she was a larger lady. And she had this flowing gray hair. And she had these glasses that were at the tip of her nose. And she had a chain on them. And she was reading this paperback book.
You sound like you're describing the potions professor in Harry Potter.
And she may have been, actually. Anyway, she looked up from her glasses. And I started querying her about magic. And she said, I'm just here babysitting the shop because this is my son's store and he's doing an errand. But this led to her and I having a conversation. And after about 20 minutes, she said to me, I really like you. She said, I think I can help you. I'm here for another 6 weeks. If you show up every day, I think you could learn a lot. And I had no clue what she meant. And this was before mindfulness or neuroplasticity were in the sort of common lexicon. And I did show up every day. Now, I have to tell you, it wasn't because I had any insight or self-awareness. I was a poor 12-year-old in despair with a feeling of hopelessness. But I did show up. And the reason I showed up was, one, I had absolutely nothing else to do. Two, she was giving me chocolate chip cookies. So those were the two drivers of my interaction with her. But to sort of understand what happened is she apparently had some exposure to Eastern meditation practices. Mm-hmm. And she taught me, if you will, what is now called a mindfulness practice. Mm-hmm. And what I never realized was that as a child, I was in a war zone all the time, a constant trauma, because you never know what's going to happen. It's chaos. There's always unexpected things. You can't rely on anyone or any person. And as a result, your muscles are always tight. You're always looking around. You can't focus. And of course, to learn, you have to be able to attend. If you can't be present, it's not possible to learn. So she recognized this, and she initially taught me a relaxation technique. And then she taught me the ability to focus or attend. And then probably the most critical thing was she taught me that the negative dialogue that was going on in my head was not truth. And oftentimes when we tell ourselves we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we don't deserve love, we think there's some truth in that.
Yeah.
But we have, as humans, a negativity bias where negative statements have a tendency to stick with us. And this leads oftentimes to rumination. And once you tell yourself, it is not possible, I cannot, that becomes truth.
Yeah.
And so we create our own limited belief system. And so she taught me a technique to respond with positive self-affirmation, but also to not respond to those negative feelings and just let them drift by, but also to constantly encourage positivity within yourself. And this led me to look at the world in a different way. And the reason I say that is, if you're hypercritical with yourself, you're hypercritical in the lens through which you see the world, and you're very judgmental. And what I tell people is, once I understood what was going on in my own head, it made me look at the world through a different lens, one of kindness, compassion. And it also dissipated the anger that I had towards my parents. Because what happens is, of course, they're supposed to be the caregivers, but if they don't have the tools to take care of their own pain, they can't help you.